Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our open event. I'm just going to give it one more minute for people who may be a couple of minutes late, and then we'll make a start. My name's Philip Stewart. I'm the Vice Principal, Head of Junior School here at Shrewsbury Riverside. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We were hopeful to be coming to you live from outside in our EY gardens this afternoon, but of course this afternoon's weather here in Bangkok has meant we are inside. Okay, I think we'll make a start, if that's okay with everybody. This afternoon should last around 30 minutes, and hopefully it will be an opportunity for you to find out some more about life here at Shrewsbury Riverside. Of course, in normal circumstances, we would love you to be here on campus with us, with our admissions team, taking you around the classrooms, meeting some of our staff, meeting our children, and of course, taking a look at our facilities, but that isn't possible. So hopefully this is the next best thing. And this afternoon, our intention is that you hear from some key staff, particularly within the EY, the early years setting here at Riverside. Also, it will give you an opportunity to see some of our facilities, and there have been some pre-submitted questions, and I'll do my best to answer some of those questions towards the end. You will also get the opportunity to see some pre-recorded videos that we've made in advance that hopefully will give you a flavour of Shrewsbury Riverside when we are fully functioning here on campus as well. I introduced myself right at the beginning. My name is Philip Stewart. I'm the Vice Principal here at Shrewsbury Riverside, also the Head of Junior School, responsible for children and families from the time that they arrive, our very youngest students in EY1 at 3 years of age, until the time that they are year 6 or 11 years of age, and move on from the junior section of our school into the senior section of the school. And I'll talk a little bit more in the coming minutes about what a through school, a school that starts at 3 and finishes at 18, can do for your child and for your family. This is my third headship. I've led schools, both independent and state schools in the UK, and also overseas. I was 7 years as Vice Principal of College at Dulwich College in Shanghai before returning to the UK, where I led an independent preparatory school before coming here to Shrewsbury Riverside. And really, the history of Shrewsbury School across the world, and particularly here in Southeast Asia, was one of my main reasons for choosing this school, both professionally, for me to experience working at such a wonderful, prestigious school as this, but also I have two of my 4 children who will be coming here to Riverside to study in year 12 and year 8. My oldest 2 children having left school and education some years ago. You would be joining Shrewsbury at a time when, despite COVID, numbers here at Riverside are increasing significantly. Now, nearly 1,800 students from 3 years old to 18 years old are studying here and leaving our school, going on to study further education at some of the most prestigious schools and colleges across the world. The history of Shrewsbury School, I've already mentioned, started off life and still continues life in the UK, in Shropshire, and is a school I know well because the independent school that I led in the UK actually fed many of our children at 13 years old into Shrewsbury, UK. So the importance that is placed by Shrewsbury educational establishments on academic standards, but also the important areas of looking after your children pastorally and engaging them in such things as the performing arts, as music, of the creative arts, and of course sport is so important across those campuses. I'm going to start by sharing a short video with you about Shrewsbury. This is Shrewsbury. I absolutely love that video. There are so many things I love about it, but I think for me, as well as the smiles on all of the students' faces, it is that it shows the breadth of experiences that your children can have if they come to Shrewsbury Riverside. It isn't just about sitting in their mathematics classrooms or their English language classrooms. It is about those breadth of experiences. And we know that particularly the top universities in the world are looking for that breadth of experience to sit around the top academic grades that children here at Riverside also get. Now, one thing that you'll have seen throughout that video, as well as the experiences, as well as the students taking part in a range of activities, you will have seen many examples of our wonderful staff here at Riverside. And yes, it is a great campus. It has got great facilities, but it is just a building until you put children in it and you put great educators in it. And it is those great educators that inspire our children here at Riverside and allow them to expand and become the successes that they do. And I think one really important factor to take away from today is that all of the teachers here at Shrewsbury are fully qualified. And that is not always the case in international schools, but here at Riverside, we pride ourselves on the qualifications and the quality of our staff. And I'm going to pass now to our assistant principal here in the junior school, Siobhan O'Brien, who is today with Holly Booth, who is our year team leader for EY2. And they're going to tell you more specifically about staff within the EY setting and also the environment of EY.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Phil. As he said, I'm Siobhan O'Brien, and with me on the screen in a moment will be Holly Booth. Just to pick up on what Phil was saying about our teachers, they are all fully qualified, but actually a lot of our early years teachers are specialists in teaching early years children, which means that when they studied at university, they particularly studied at working with children in the early years, so aged between 2 and 5. And among our teaching staff, they have over 100 years experience of working with early years children. But not only are they're not settled on what they're currently doing, they constantly work as a team to reflect on their practice and to improve the experience for the children across the early years to make sure that they're getting the best possible start to their educational journey. And a lot of our teachers have specialist areas that they focus on and bring that into the curriculum. And Holly is just going to talk to us a little bit more about some of those specialist areas.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm so lucky that here at Shrewsbury we have a team, like Siobhan said, with so many specialists in many different areas. So our teachers in early years are very skilled and very knowledgeable in things like forest schools, plan, do, review process, helicopter storytelling, and in massage in schools. And this specialist knowledge that they have and expertise really helps to complement the early years curriculum and really brings out the best within the children. We really want to develop the children holistically in early years so that they can succeed in more of a classroom setting. So we need to make sure that they grow up to be able to tackle they have emotional regulation skills and things like that, so that when they come into a classroom, they can handle the learning within that classroom as well. So we make sure that we develop them in all areas for them to be able to succeed. So things like our Massage in Schools program is really good at helping to teach the children how to be very calm and to be very focused and to promote their social and emotional well-being, teaching them how to relate to their peers in a very kind and a very gentle manner as well.
Now, as you might be able to tell from behind us, both Holly and I are sat in early years classrooms. We were hoping to be able to stand in our garden, but the rain changed that for us. But we wanted to give you a sense of what it feels like in an early years classroom. So we've just got a little video to hopefully give you a flavour of the environment. I should probably say there that if you have been into our early years environment before, the classrooms might look slightly different, because over the summer, a number of our early years classrooms had a refurbishment, and hopefully by the end of next summer, all of the classrooms will have been refurbed to look as that one did. Now, what you might have noticed in that video is that the environment is very neutral. It's quite clutter-free. There isn't much in there. And also that there's lots of resources which we call open-ended, or you might hear the term loose parts. Holly is just going to talk a little bit about why we chose this sort of environment and what the research behind it says.
Sure. So we have this environment for our children deliberately because research tells us that spaces that have neutral tones and that are very clutter-free, without bright colors and lots and lots of toys in the environment and things, actually help the children to focus much better upon their learning. And we also want our classrooms to be open and flexible spaces where the children within it see that as their space, and we adapt the space according to their own interests. And what you will notice at Shrewsbury when you walk around is that no two classrooms look the same, because the space of the classroom is the children's space, and that reflects them and their personalities and their interests and needs within the classroom. And as Siobhan touched on just there, we do use lots of open-ended materials, and what Siobhan talked about there with what we also call loose parts. We deliberately do that because what we know is that loose parts and open-ended materials are far better at promoting higher order thinking skills. If, for example, I gave the children some plastic fruit, it's likely that they will only play with that resource as plastic fruit. But if, for example, I give the children a resource that's far more open-ended and ambiguous, like, for example, some buttons, the children might play with this in many different ways according to their interests. They might pretend it's treasure and they're at pirates. They might pretend it's money. They might pretend it's tickets to a theme park. But it's really up to the child, and they've really got to think and use their imagination and their creativity. It also really helps using materials like this because it also means that it's helping to develop their language skills, because they're having to explain what their resource is and how they are using it as well. And they get to experiment with using new vocabulary that they have also learnt. So they're really, really good resources to have in our classrooms.
And that's a really important point to pick up on that Holly was saying, that and we actually did a study when we first introduced open-ended resources and loose parts, because we were one of the first schools in Bangkok to do that. The teachers underwent a really long study to look at how this impacted on the children's development. And the one area that really shone was the development of their language, because they were having to use their language so much more to talk to their friends, to talk to the teacher around what it was that they were doing and what they were using these resources for, as opposed to when they did have plastic fruit or a car. They didn't have to use the language because it was obvious what they were using it for. So the use of these objects have been really important for that development of language, which is so important in the early years. Within that video as well, you also saw a mixture of adult-led time, which is when the teacher is leading the learning, perhaps with a group of children, and also what we call child-led learning, when the children are given the opportunity to play uninterrupted by an adult. Now, we know that research tells us that children of this age learn best when they are learning through play. And the role of the adults in the room is to be a facilitator, to observe what the children are doing, to intervene if appropriate, to maybe extend them through questioning or bringing in other resources. But the children are the ones that are really leading that play. We also know that for children to show high levels of involvement, they need to be playing for a sustained period of time. So what we do here at Shrewsbury is we give children that uninterrupted time where they get to play and explore in the indoor and outdoor environment. And the teachers are there with them to facilitate this. Holly, do you just want to talk a little bit more about the adult's role, but also about the adult-directed time?
Sure. So within play, as Siobhan said, we are really supporting the children. All of our early years team have an excellent knowledge of the early years curriculum, and they use this to support and extend children. This might be through modeling new language to them. This might be particularly for children who have English as an additional language, through narrating what they are doing and explaining what they see. It can be through showing or demonstrating a new skill to the children, through explaining something to the children that they might not know that's happening in their play. So for example, if they're playing in the water tray, do you notice how the ice is turning to water, and explaining why that is and why that's happening? The adults will also be facilitating things between the children, so facilitating and helping them to understand each other's needs and to be sharing and taking turns. And also through setting challenges to the children, through, for example, saying, I wonder if you can jump from higher than where you are jumping, or I wonder if you can swing on the bars for longer. Can you do that for 10 seconds? The adult really thinks together with the child, and we call this sustained shared thinking. So the adult is modeling those thinking skills while they are playing with them. And at other times through the day, Siobhan, as Siobhan was saying, we have more adult directed times on the carpet. And this is where we are introducing new knowledge to the children that they might not necessarily acquire through their play, or we are building upon something that we have seen in their play that day. Things that we traditionally introduce in these carpet times can be things like new mathematical concepts to the children, or it can be phonics through linking letters to sounds. Or as I said, it can be talking about the play that we've observed and introducing new knowledge that way as well.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the indoor environment, but we are incredibly proud here at Shrewsbury of our outdoor environment. A good outdoor environment is vital in any early years setting. And we're very lucky in Bangkok with ours. And we're just going to show you a little video to show you our garden. And as that said at the end, I really hope you can get to come and look for yourself soon. Now, in terms of our early years garden, our classrooms lead straight out into the garden area, which means that our children have free flow access inside and outside of the classroom all day. And a lot of our children actually choose to spend the majority of their day outside. And it's really, really important, not only for their physical development, but also for their mental well-being. As we've known over the past couple of years, having the opportunity to go outside really helps our mental well-being. And in terms of the children's physical development, they have lots of opportunity to practice those big, large motor skills like running and jumping and climbing, which are all really important skills for the children to develop and to grow, because these skills are vital for later on when actually we expect them to use their fine motor skills, and they're expected to do things like sit at a table and hold a pencil. Because if those gross motor skills aren't there, and particularly thinking around things like your core strength, if that isn't strong, then actually when it comes to sitting down at a table and doing things like writing, it's much more difficult for the children. And in terms of our garden area, this was developed with our children in mind, and we redesigned it a couple of years ago. And when we were redesigning it, we thought about areas of the children's physical development that they were perhaps weaker in. So one of the areas was that living in Bangkok and perhaps living in condos and going to places like shopping malls with lots of lifts and escalators, the children actually weren't used to walking on uneven surfaces or walking up hills, because actually a lot of the flooring that they walk on is very flat. So we added in, as you saw in the video, the sort of grassy hill for the children to practice running up and running down again, and also some uneven walkways so that the children can practice and get used to walking on surfaces that aren't quite as flat. And one of our main, I'm pointing over here because actually the garden's over here from where I am now. One of our main areas was what we call the orchard or the forest school area. And when the garden was changed, we introduced our school's forest school curriculum. And Holly was one of the leading teachers in this, having got her forest school qualification. So Holly, do you just want to talk a little bit about this and why we introduced it and what it's adding to our curriculum?
Sure. So the forest school movement is a very popular and a very successful educational movement that actually first originated in Denmark. It's based upon hands-on nature-based play. So as Siobhan touched upon, a lot of our children live in condos and maybe don't have access to outside spaces. And we know that in the modern world, children are spending a lot less time in nature, and it's really, really important for their emotional well-being and their physical skills as well. So in our forest school sessions, we're really teaching the children to observe and appreciate the natural world around them. And we're teaching them to respect the natural world. So things that we've been doing with the children, for example, have been looking after the different creatures that come into our garden. So for example, we've been filling up the bird feeders weekly to look after the birds and make sure that they are taken care of and that they come back to our garden and visit us. We also learn to take responsibility of the natural world. So we do things in our sessions like making sure that any little bits of string or any litter or anything that's been left behind, perhaps from doing some den building, is cleared up and cleared away. And we talk about why that's really, really important. Also, another really big element of our forest school sessions is allowing the children to take risks, because we know that it's very healthy for children to take some risks in their play. So for example, by climbing structures that are quite high, obviously we do this in a safe way, and the children are always safe, but we want them to have an element of risk in their play, because it's really good for them to develop their resilience and their confidence if they can learn to take risks themselves, and they know not to be nervous and fearful of new things. So for example, by children being really brave and by taking a risk, by climbing up, doing tree climbing or something in a forest school session, then they are learning the skills to have confidence in themselves in other situations where they might feel fear or nervousness in everyday life. Like, for example, going to a new setting or going to meet new friends or going somewhere new. So it's really, really good that they have that exposure to a little bit of risky play as well in those sessions.
And we've run our forest school curriculum now for 1 year. We did it throughout the last academic year, and the children really, really enjoyed the sessions. And you could see them going to a session. They had a weekly session every class, and it was their favourite time of the week to be able to go and enjoy those forest school activities. Now, I'm going to pass back to Mr. Stewart shortly, but before we do, I just wanted to touch upon the importance of relationships throughout the school, but particularly in the early years. And that isn't just the relationship between the teacher and the children, it's also the relationship between the teacher and the parent. Because we know that you as parents are your child or your children's first and most important teacher. And actually, we want to really get to know you, and which will then help us to get to know your child, and ensure that those relationships are really strong. Because for children to learn, they need to feel secure and safe in the relationships that they are in. So in terms of parents, we get you involved in lots of different ways, coming and learning with your children and spending some time in the classroom, having one-to-one sessions with your class teacher to give some more information around your child's interests, what they like or perhaps what they don't like. And we really, really value the input from you as parents, because we really do believe that us working together will give the best outcome for you and for your child. And just one more video to finish with before I pass back to Mr. Stewart, which is a message from one of our parents who's had children go from EY up to the end of junior school.
Hello, my name is Genya Whiting. I have 4 children aging from 5 to 10, 2 boys and 2 girls. 2 girls have already attended from the EY1 to EY2, and my oldest child is now currently in year 6. My 2 girls absolutely love the garden, because I think it feels like it doesn't feel like school. It feels like they go to a park or somewhere, because the teachers like really let them play freely what they want to play and how they want to play with their games. And in terms of their classroom, I think it's lovely because it's not so formal. They have sections and areas where it feels like home. Throughout one whole month, every Friday, you go in for 30 minutes, so come and see me read or come and see me swim. And during those times, parents are allowed to go in the classroom for 30 minutes just to read a book with your child to see whether about their reading or what their favourite books are, their favourite toys are. For swimming, it's to see how their skills have been developed or how confident they have been with the water. And for me to see that with my children and seeing them enjoying it and wanting to show and feeling proud of themselves, that mummy, I can do this now, mummy, I can do that now. It just brings joys to me. There's a lot of community events going on at Shrewsbury. It's amazing how many communities or events that takes place at this school. There's a lot of charity events that takes place. There's a lot of events through like the Thai traditional events like Songkran, the Thai New Year, Chinese events, Indian events. There's a lot of events with the children themselves, what they've achieved outside from school and in schools. And one of them was the Thai tradition where I decided to do Thai food. They get involved in making it partly and then tasting it. And there's another station where you do the arts and craft, where the children get to sit down and actually learn how to make certain things out of like Thai traditional things, planting Thai herbs and that. And those were my favourite community event that we take place at Shrewsbury. The greatest strength at Shrewsbury for me personally, I think, is the community with the teachers and the parents. Thank you to the teachers. They really do put a lot of work to ensure that the kids are ready and happy. That's, very important for me. They are more confident in asking about things they don't understand and not being embarrassed about things. So in that sense, the teachers, we make sure encourage the children that if you're nervous or you're scared about something but you don't know what to do, have the confidence to ask about it. All of them have been very lucky to have amazing teachers to go through with them step by step what there are to expect in each of their classroom. So when they actually do arrive on their first day, they're not as scared or nervous how I thought they would be. They're actually quite excited about it because they've already been ready and prepared. So the teacher that for his last year, Mrs. Sullivan, is great. Sky had him for 2 years, year 3 and year 5. And I think because he knows Sky a lot when he was like in year 3, there's so many things that he actually did help with Sky, with his confidence, with his any problem, issue that he had at school. He really hands-on. So Sky's lucky to have him there. My parenting, I'm a bit more westernized. There are things that I quite like the Thai tradition where they respect the adults a bit more, but there's a point where I do teach them, you respect your adults, your elders, but it doesn't mean that you can't be yourself. So there's a fine line, and I think Shrewsbury really does show the children you can be Thai and respect the Thai tradition ways, but at the same time you have to grow My kids really do remodel the attitude I've learnt from school. One term it could be about respectful, the other term could be about kindness, and they do actually take that on board and bring it back home, and we talk about it, and then they're trying to do that with each other. Or if one person starts yelling and they say, hey, you've got to be more respectful because we don't yell, we after we talk, you're missing our words. So in that sense, like, you are learning it, and it takes time. They don't do it straight away, but it takes time over time, and you do see that behaviour remodelling back at home. At Shrewsbury, the communication between teachers and parents are brilliant. I know exactly what my kids are doing. I've got 4 children from early years to year 1, to year 3, to year 6. The teachers communicate with the parents in so many different ways. Every year group will get the communication book. The teacher will write the comments in there, what the child has been doing. You can always go on one-on-one during the pick-up time or the drop-off time. Or there's a parents-teachers conference where you meet with a teacher specifically to talk to your child's abilities and what they're going through. And there's also like email, or even sometimes they do call you. I think the teachers at Shrewsbury are very passionate. They care what they do. I can see that displaying through my children. Apart from being passionate what they teach the children at the school, they're also passionate with their children's well-being. So for me, it's important.
Hopefully through Holly and Siobhan, and just then through Kunganya, you have got a sense of what starting off education at Shrewsbury is like. It's exciting, it's busy, and there's lots going on at all times for your child and for you. You will be joining a community, part of a family. And a lot of parents say to me, well, so what? Where does that lead, and how do you know? And I come back to what I said right at the beginning, that by joining Shrewsbury Riverside, you would be joining a through school, a school that starts at 3 years old, but finishes at 18 years old. And that throughness is really, really important. A lot of the work I do, as well as working with the staff and students within the junior school, is liaising with the senior school, particularly the leadership team within the senior school, to make sure that within the junior section of the school, we are preparing children, both academically and holistically, for life in the senior school and beyond. Now, some of you may follow us on our various social media channels. If you don't, I really encourage you to, because that will give you even more of a flavor of what goes on here. But if you do follow us on social media, you will see lots of information on there, both infographics or videos or just plain text information that tells you about the successes that are evident here throughout the whole of Shrewsbury Riverside. And when you look in particular at the senior school successes, you can relate those to the successes of the junior school. Many children in our senior school, and those who've left over the years, have started off life in EY. They've started off life in EY and they have gone right through the school. So when we see successes at GCSEs, at A-levels, when we hear of successes at universities or in careers, then we can look at that as a junior school and say, actually, we too are doing the right thing. We too are preparing these children correctly for the future of their education and the future of their careers. And let's take a look at a video showing some of the very recent academic successes here at Riverside. So whilst coming to school is not all about academics, we do know how important it is. And that infographic video there will have shown you that Shrewsbury Riverside has some of the best exam results here in Thailand, getting children, young adults, into some of the top universities in the whole world, particularly looking there at the Ivy League, Russell Group, Oxbridge University, universities there as well. So important that we can prepare children for the right universities. Hopefully today you have got a sense of what Shrewsbury is about. We would love to see you here on campus in the coming weeks. We do have a few questions that have been submitted in advance of today. There is a chat function on here, so if you have a question from listening today that you would like to ask, please feel free to put it into the chat function and we will do what we can to answer them there and then. But in terms of the ones that have been submitted, of course, the question on everybody's mind at the moment is, when will schools reopen? And the reality is, whatever we read on social media or hear in the media, nobody can guarantee the answer to that. Here at Riverside, we have put a request into the MOPH to reopen on October the 4th. Whether that will happen will be government dependent, I'm sure. But what I can say is that when we are given the go-ahead to reopen, we will do so safely, taking into account our campus, our students, and our parents at the same time. So we all, I'm sure you do the same, you are hoping that it is sooner rather than later. But we want to make sure that it is safe for all of our community before we do so. There was another submitted question that asked about ratios in the school. A really good question. What is our adult to child ratios? Well, in the early years section of the school, it is 1 adult per 5 children. And from year 1 onwards, it is about 1 to 11. It changes ever so slightly as you move up the school, but within the junior section of the school, it is about 1 to 11. Now, again, the other question that particularly parents of EY children are asking is about online provision. And that's what we currently have at the moment. And I think it's well known throughout the world that provision online for EY children is extremely difficult. And what I would say about online provision for EY here at Shrewsbury is we're very flexible in our nature, flexible dependent on the age of the child, on the ability of the child. There is a big difference between a child who has perhaps only just turned 3 to a child who is nearing their 4th birthday. And some children can sit for extended periods online, whereas others cannot. So we very much want to take into account the needs of the children, but we make sure that they are small groups. I think first and foremost, we make sure that it is small groups so that there can be some individualized support. And indeed, where necessary, we provide one-to-one support for students or for parents too. And it is also important that we don't get rid of the fact that children, particularly young children, need to move. They need to be doing things. So the teachers and the staff will often set tasks whereby children bring activities, bring materials online, and their activities involve movement. So there's hopefully just a brief glimpse as to what our online provision does look like. Of course, if you have specific questions that you want to ask after today's meeting, you can either contact our admissions department, or indeed you can come through to our reception and ask to arrange a phone call with either myself, with Siobhan, one of our assistant principals, or Debbie Brown, one of our other assistant principals. So there is always that option to have those one-to-one Zoom conversations if you have specific questions about your child. I'm just checking as to whether we have any other questions. Siobhan, are you able to see?
Yes, we just had one that talks about the mixture of Thai and non-Thai students. So as a school as a whole, we're around 70% Thai, 30% non-Thai. It varies year group on year group, but we don't have a cap on that. We don't have a cap on how many Thai to non-Thai in a year group.
Okay, thank you. I think that might be the only question. Do you see any others, Siobhan?
No, that's the only one.
Okay, well, it's been lovely having you all this afternoon, albeit virtually. As I've said, if you have got questions, then please do contact our admissions department. They will be contacting you over the coming days anyway to see if you'd like to move anything forward or if you have any questions. We have a number of members within our admissions department, all who can help. We are taking applications now, and indeed we're already going through some assessments for children for August 2022. So if you do want to get onto that continuum now, find out more information, receive some paperwork, then please do drop our admissions department a line. We wish you all a lovely evening and hope to see some of you and your children here at Riverside in the coming weeks. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.